The first thing is, well, I guess it started from point of contention, but then I went and, learned something that I was quite a bit surprised, and I didn't think that it was that much. So, so you brought up how you had seen, we are talking about population control and lifestyle changes for, combating climate change, other kind of issues and everything. And you mentioned that, how you had seen this program on BBC, which pointed out that the dog in the family like emitted more emissions than was responsible for more greenhouse gas emission and stuff. So, I mean, I couldn't go and find that program again exactly, but I went to find a little bit in
Oh,
the
you found something better, I think.
something worse, yeah, better or worse, however you
I,
want to
I
put
take
it.
my knowledge from BBC quiz shows. You take it from like real research. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I went, and apparently the literature on dogs' impact on climate change is very limited. So apparently there are only a few studies. Every news article that I clicked on took me back to kind of the same 2 or 3 research papers. But Sam, I was a bit shocked. So as a vegan pet owner myself, I was a bit shocked about this. But then I found some ways of making myself feel better. So we can get to that at the end. But they're saying that the 106, this is according to a study by UCLA professor, the 163 million dogs and cats in the US ate 1/4 of the 94.3 pounds of meat the country produced in 2015. In other words, as much as 62 million Americans. So apparently pet dogs and cats in the US ate as much meat as 62 million Americans. And this generated as much greenhouse gas
I
emissions
love
as
you
12
focused on that.
million passenger vehicles in the United States. So pretty much dogs and cats are responsible for 25 to 30% of the environmental impact on meat consumption in the US. And then I just have some figures from the UK. Roughly twice the size of the UK, right, is used annually to make dry food for cats and dogs. So sorry, I think this is for around the world
Jesus.
or for like all markets, I believe. I don't know why I don't have that specifying it, but yeah, it's saying roughly twice the size of the UK are used annually to make dry food for cats and dogs. So I've thought of a few solutions on how to how to
That's why I
combat this
don't
issue,
look.
but
That's by the way why I don't look too deep into things because you just get more depressed and more
yeah.
depressed. Yeah, go ahead.
But this is, I mean, it makes complete sense because dogs and cats, they pretty much need to eat, they have to eat a lot of meat. Or, I mean, or one of the kind of solutions are in this area is if they switch to like chicken products and fish products. And for instance, I was looking at my dog's food, but she's like a small dog, but I did go and get her like good food. So because before she was having issues, and like 40% of it are fruits and vegetables and 60% are chicken and fish.
By the
So
way,
if
fruits fruits and vegetables do contribute to deforestation as well. It's not
to
just
deforestation,
meat.
100%. Oh yeah, here we're just talking
Yes.
about greenhouse gas emissions. So exactly, producing food. But I mean, I think this is just an important thing that people need to take into consideration. Like I remember, and I think some dog owners, this was never like promoted that much. And I'm into this and I never heard about this. Like for instance, whenever you get a dog, there are all these websites that advocate on why you should neuter your dog or spay them in the for girls. And one of the reasons that they give, which was one that I was resold on, because of course there's the issue of always watching over your dog, making sure that they don't get impregnated or impregnate someone else, or if they're girls, then they get periods and all this. And that's not, that's also a trouble for them. But the other one that they mentioned, maybe you'll like that, Sam, was overpopulation of dogs. There were already all these homeless dogs out there. So if you prefer, don't let your dog have
I
nine
actually
kids,
hate that.
have 9 kids. So therefore, it doesn't contribute. And no matter how many homes you find, some of them could still easily end up in bad situations. So I think just like how they educate dog owners about that, this should be at least included in it. So there's at least some awareness. I mean, I had no
I
idea, but
mean,
yeah, go ahead.
I genuinely disagree with you so much
On what?
on on so many levels. It's just
Good.
for my point is if we want to live a good life, that everybody has a garden and somebody wants to have a pet, they have a pet and all that, like we can't do it at this level of population. Just it's not possible. And that was just example of that. So this idea that you just put forward, that maybe they should promote, maybe they should educate about how responsible dog ownership or responsible feeding, it's not about that. It's like the idea that using water responsibly, using gas responsibly, that's not working. It's about, again, about the volume. So the idea of educating people and all that, I think that has failed in so many different things. And about the dog thing, I think unless you have like land where you can, the dog can, like, this whole pets in, I know this is something that is very close to your heart as well, but I really genuinely feel this is like slavery. I don't understand how everybody's cool with, and look at the pictures of dogs from 100 years ago and to now. And we growing up, I grew up with dogs. We never neutered them. We had the doctors and all that, and we never horses, same. Some people have them neutered, and for different. Like I don't like this. I don't like I don't like this is like if aliens come tomorrow to Earth and they're more intelligent than us, then it's cool for them to neuter us and and have us as a slaves and take us. I just don't like it. I again, only dogs, because they seem to form some bond. And if you have land, big dogs, like if you have a space, other, like I see these people who have huskies and German shepherds in apartments, and that's as bad as the slavery. And I'm not one of those crazy people, by the way. In France, for example, that actor that thinks that, like, the people who eat food are all like genocidal. There is this famous French actress who goes on about, like, if you eat meat, you're a genocidal maniac. But this is like a living creature. Like I don't get it. I really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I could meet you kind of halfway, because I mean, some of the stuff that you're saying, of course, for sure. I mean, I don't understand why exactly, like someone who has an apartment, why do they have to go get a big dog? And a big dog needs to behave in a totally different way than a small dog. They are both dogs, but they do behave very differently. I'm taking the easier arguments first, but sure,
no, wait. The same exact reason the super rich guy takes the tiger in his house. That's what he can do to gain attention.
Oh, perhaps, or maybe people don't think about it. I mean, that's true, but some people are like, oh, I love this kind of dog, and they don't just think about it and they just get it. I mean, people do also make bad decisions. Only. Yeah. Oh no, I mean, of course, having a pet is kind of all about you, especially when you go get a pet that was just bred. It is all about you. But I mean, a small dog, let's say, that you keep in your house or stuff, if they've been neutered and all this, I mean, you're not causing psychological damage on them by having them as a dog owner in your house. I mean, it's different than if you're keeping someone in your house, or if you're keeping a big animal in your house, you could be impacting them negatively, but not necessarily with dogs. And the last thing about dogs is that dogs are like a human creation. So, I mean, does it mean that humans should treat them badly and stuff? They pretty much are. I mean, they very much try to domesticate types of wolves who were nicer and nicer with humans.
You have wild
and then breeding
dogs,
them. Yeah, I know there are, but all these little dogs, that different kinds of dogs that we've made, they've all been made through human breeding and selection, most of them.
Sure.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know if this like makes them different, but they are a bit different in this sense.
They're living beings. It's like people who are like, I'm actually not against like GM foods, for example, genetically modified foods, because I think we should get there and we should start like improving how we do it matters. But these are living things. I don't even believe in a soul, but I think they suffer, they feel pain. I don't know. It's just,
I mean, if you torture them and if you do bad stuff and stuff,
torture, I mean, I don't even,
or if you do bad stuff to them.
A lot. By the way, there were loads of slaves who were in love with their masters, who loved them like God. Why? Because they never were allowed to leave the like until at least they developed the brain. They weren't allowed to leave the castle or whatever it was. So I don't see any. I do admit that there are certain breeds of dogs now that cannot live without human help and all that. So, fair enough.
A lot of them now can't. But I mean, just coming back more to the climate change thing, okay? I mean,
anybody who's been to Turkey or Georgia, I think you'll see all these wild dogs, wild cats. They're living their lives. They have
Oh
tags
yeah,
and
Brazil.
shit. Just leave animals alone. I don't get it. Just leave them alone to
No,
be.
no, like in Brazil. But okay, I mean, just coming back to the climate change aspect and stuff, right? You say it's all about volume, but precisely it's about volume. I mean, like I kind of meet you more halfway now, because even let's say if you have 2 billion people on this planet, they still can't do whatever they want. So at the end of the day, it's about still lifestyle. So I mean, that's important. But now I feel like
uh,
you're dismissing that too much.
I think if you have 2 to 3 billion people on Earth, they can do pretty much whatever they want
But why? That's
without
only half of the
putting the risk.
population of
And
now. But where'd you
wait,
get
wait,
that from? I don't get it.
because I get that, because I don't mean that just in terms of like doing, like having a pet, having a swimming pool. Organizationally, 7 billion people, in my view, are unmanageable
But I don't see
organizationally.
how you know that
But
7 billion aren't manageable, but 3 billion
with
are.
no, with the current level of infrastructure, it's just the level of population has passed the current level of infrastructure and what Earth can handle with the current technology. Maybe tomorrow we find a new technology that changes the whole game. We can turn salt water into gold, and we can turn salt into oxygen. We can turn CO2 back to oxygen. That can happen. Technology can improve. But with the current thing, our main focus should be reduction of population. Our main focus shouldn't be these little adjustments, you know? It should
But
be a
these are
global program of control, population control.
my other point with that actually is even if you agree that sure, like going forward, we based on like the current technology and the current way that people are living and stuff, if we go and Bobby, by the way, populations aren't meant to be increasing forever and ever, right? There are now estimates that by turn of the century, it's going to start coming back down. So that's just something to bear in mind. But you need to have also lifestyle and these kind of ideas. If not, I mean, I just don't see if there are 2 billion people or 3 billion people, if
Look,
continue
man,
people doing
look,
everything, why would the technology or the infrastructure then be able to handle? And final thing,
because
population
right now,
control will only start bearing fruits in like 40 to 50 years. So I mean, right now it's not an immediate solution either.
look, man, right now, and for the last 30, and I would say maybe 100 years, the people have been reproducing at a growing rate, serving the political interests
Mhm.
of people who take advantages of human frailty, human stupidity, and human self-love. But all of it, by the way, applies to me more than any of our viewers, most probably, or anybody who ever watches this. So the, at the current population levels, they can easily do that because our political systems, our infrastructure is not sophisticated. But when population was less, they could, like, you know, when you have 100,000 crazy people, you can do a lot of things. But when you have like 5 crazy people, it's much,
Yeah, but
you
that's a
know,
big
less
difference.
things.
You went from 100 to 5.
It is a big deal. Yeah, it's
Yeah, I mean, that's
okay.
huge. That's
All
dividing the
right.
population in 20. But then again, you see countries of
Okay,
different sizes of
50
population,
then.
and that doesn't lead to better governance. A country with
Of
80
course
million
it
can have
does.
better governance than a country with 40
Of
million
course it
easily.
does.
So there are a lot of other factors to bear in mind.
If you look at
Why
the
not Germany
amount
and
of,
Italy?
if you look at the amount of arable land, if you look at the amount of water, and then population, and then measurements that look at like quality of life and that type of thing, Northern European countries are always on top. Germany and Holland are always on top. Canada is always on top. What's the population of Canada? 30 million? There is a reason for that, because that's, by the way, putting aside the whole history of European imperialism that is explaining why they can, you know, be at the position they are, right? There is, it's like, it's much easier to manage a smaller group of people than large groups of people.
Technically, in most cases, they are, but they still not always the case. And I mean, I'm just trying to make the point now that I'm not only saying that like lifestyle or better governments and all this is needed. I agree that at some point, you can have unlimited amount of people, but all those
Yeah,
things
sure.
contribute to volume that you were talking. That's kind of all I'm saying. And I'm also saying with the governance, you see, okay, within Europe, why is Germany probably ranks better at all these things than you said than Italy? And they're two, very close European countries, and Germany probably has double the population of
By the way,
Italy.
Bavaria, yeah, but like for example, Bavaria has some of the best, lands on earth in terms of
Yeah,
industry.
no,
Like,
these
yeah,
are
but that's different. That was man-made in terms of industry. Or Bavaria. I mean, European Union was started as the European Coal and Steel Community because there was coal and steel industries there. These things. Geography is pretty much everything, I think, in many ways. Or at least it was. Now that's gone global and all that. Maybe it's technology, but yeah. Again, I just think it with the current level of infrastructure, I think we can manage maybe about 3 billion, maybe,
I don't know.
and we should.
I
And
don't know
right now,
what the
by the
number
way,
is.
majority of governments, a lot of them in the developing boards, including China, they're completely pursuing the opposite policy and are looking to increase populations because politically short term it's beneficial.
And because I mean, a lot of them, their populations are also dropping, and of course, you lose certain advantages when you have
You
less
can
people as
invest
well.
in tech, you can invest in
Yeah.
automation and not make more slaves that gonna live in gutters and never
Yeah,
see
no, I mean,
sunlight or apple.
education about reproduction and all this is completely
Oh yeah,
important. And I take a lot of the points that you're saying. Yeah. But again, I think if you have 3 billion people and they do whatever the hell they want, they can cause a lot more damage to the planet and continue, going forward with climate change and everything. So, I
look,
mean,
I'm just
can't fall in this
let's
false
be
dichotomy, which I think I had fallen in a little bit. So I kind of realized I was completely
fair enough.
dismissing population, and like,
Of
sure, of
course,
course,
if
population plays a role, but
one person with one push of his fingers right now can destroy the whole planet with nuclear bombs. That's possible, but it's far less likely to happen when there are 3 billion, in my view, than when you have 7 billion going around. And when you have 7 billion going around, that you have nobody knows what's going on.
but
Like
even
there
if you
is
have
this
3 billion,
pretense.
you'll still know you won't know what's
No,
going
you
on.
can have proper surveillance systems, you can
I
have
don't know.
sewage systems, you can have
Uh, Seems like you're very set on this 3 billion. You should become a
ah,
politician just running on this 3
okay.
billion. It reminds me of that guy who was running for Republican.
Herman Cain.
Yeah, I just like
Herman Cain.
999. He's like, yeah, that's a
Nine
good
nine nine.
number for taxes. I'm just gonna like, where did you pull that from?
No, I know. Yeah, no, it's just because I was looking, like basically we were 3 billion, I think, or less at the start of the 20th century.
Mhm.
So that's
That's
by
basic.
repeating. Well, you're right. Their number has. I haven't done it. I should do it. I have done it. Sporadically researched different topics on this matter
Yeah.
and came to this. But I should do a proper research in which I evaluate, like, what do I mean by infrastructure and what do I mean by institutions and how much population can they actually handle. So I am talking out of my ass a lot here. It's just the take based on many
Yeah.
different observations of different things.
Okay. All right. But just to wrap up with the dog part. So for anybody who wants to do it because they think it matters or for just themselves to feel better, I mean, one point to take away is that we should bear in mind the greenhouse gas emissions that dogs are responsible through their food only, really, something I hadn't paid too much attention. And of course, their food can vary a bit. They can eat fish, they can eat chicken instead of meat. But this one caught my attention. Listen to this, Sam. Vets in the US classified more than 100 million dogs and cats as overweight or obese. so, so that's more than like 2/3 of them are out of shape. So maybe also cutting back on the overeating there. And just like how they advocate about other things now, whether you think that it's efficient or enough or it means anything, these little things, I mean, it's just a good thing to bear in mind before we got into the whole philosophical conversation about, neutering our dogs and keeping them as slaves and all this, as Sam said. But yeah, and apparently the research is very minimal in this, and I can see why. Like, not many people will be happy with finding out like the dog's impact and stuff. So these numbers can also be vague in the research. Sorry, they can't be a bit misleading in the research. They said there's just very little database to go about for these kind of studies. But so that's that. I've learned something new about my I mean, not that I didn't know, I just never thought about
We
it that
all
much.
learn.
Yeah, you were never thought about it that well. But and just one last thing that I wanted to bring up about this from last week, and I'm not sure if you actually meant to say this or you just made a sign, but you kind of made it seem like like human breeding contributes to climate change. And I'm not sure if you did that or not. But I
Human
was,
breeding, as
yeah,
in,
like the
yeah, like
CO2
more humans.
that we emit, if that contributes to climate change. And apparently it does not at all, because based on what I was reading
No,
and
human
stuff, because
activity.
no, not human, no, human
I
activity,
meant
of
human.
course it does. Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, I knew that you didn't
No,
mean that. That
but
was just a
I think,
misunderstanding.
yeah, I think the causality between human activity and humans is very clear, but a lot of people seem to think no. So
No, but with breathing, do you know why breathing doesn't contribute to climate change necessarily, like human breathing, like when we exhale CO2?
I don't understand your point.
Why do
Like, what do you
humans
mean?
exhale CO2, right? Like when we breathe out.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
all
when we
right.
breathe
As
out.
in, like when the number goes up, the
Yeah, I mean
number. Okay,
it
okay,
doesn't
okay,
matter
bro.
at
Sorry.
all how many humans, apparently. Someone
Oh,
correct me if
really?
I
No,
didn't understand.
I never thought about it.
Yeah, I never thought about it why, but it never comes up. No one ever says, oh,
I'm
less
sure
humans should less
it's
breathe.
to an ex. We might.
This
Why
is based
not?
on what I understand. Listen, this is based on what I understand. Because the CO2 that we produce all comes from the plant, from the food that we had just eaten. And that had taken the CO2 because of photosynthesis and all that through just from the recent amount of carbon that's in the atmosphere. So it's kind of like a cycle from based on what I understand. So you're pretty much breathing back out the carbon that the plant had taken. Whereas the difference with burning fossil fuel is that you're emitting all this carbon that had been sequestered in Earth, in the planet for billions of years. So that's why you're adding it. I mean, I had never thought about it, but yeah, that's why apparently,
I
like, no matter how many humans breathe, we're just part of like the cycle of the CO2 that was taken from the atmosphere by the plants, then maybe gone to the animal, then we eat it, and then we exhale it back out. So someone correct me if I'm
look.
wrong there. It was very like biology oriented explanation,
Yeah, exactly.
but apparently that is I had to read the same thing like
Reason.
10 times. I think I got it.
Uh,
But
that's the thing.
anyway,
I'm shaking my head in agreement, but I don't know what the hell you're talking about. But yeah, I don't like, yes, but yeah, no, I
yeah.
meant human activity. All
Yeah,
right, I
no, of
got
course,
your.
human
All right.
activity. Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
of course, right. So yeah, yeah,
Uh,
exactly. So in a
yeah, if
way,
you
our
like 10 billion in a box, like Matrix, that's, yeah, I think that's
yeah,
possible. But yeah.
that's a bit different.